Hello, and welcome to the City Club of Eugene's December 9th, 2022 program, an introduction to the Ballmer Institute for Children's Behavioral Health. This is the 12th program of our 2022-2023 programming year. My name is Karen Knutson, and I am proud to be City Club's president. Welcome to everyone here with us today. It is so delightful to see your faces, and also to everyone who is listening and live streaming with us. It is an absolute pleasure to have you as a part of this important community conversation. For almost 30 years, the City Club of Eugene has been delivering our mission to build community vision through open inquiry by coordinating weekly programs on topical, engaging community issues. City Club creates the space for civil discussions about civic issues, and today we turn our attention and this meeting to the needs of children and youth, their behavioral health. Support for the City Club of Eugene is provided by our members and both business and in-kind sponsors. Our diamond sponsors are Kaiser Permanente, the University of Oregon, Peace Health, and Lane Community College. And we are grateful to the City of Eugene and Lane County for their support. You too can support the City Club's mission and our weekly programming by becoming a member at our website, cityclubofelugene.org. We invite you to join City Club's programs and to hear directly from local, national, and international experts with us. And we also encourage you to ask questions of them, and we will do that today as well. After we hear from our speaker, we will have City Club's Q&A to wrap our program. Please feel free to send those questions to the live stream, to generate them at your tables with your friends and colleagues, or to email them to us at info@cityclubofelugene.org. Thank you to Joel Corin for coordinating today's program, and a special thank you to Jim Dotson for his behind-the-scenes work on our audio production. Jim helps to make sure that City Club sounds crystal clear every week, wherever you're listening. And so now, on to today's program. It is our delight to welcome Dr. Ruth Ellingson, PhD, a licensed psychologist and clinical assistant professor at the University of Oregon, where she serves as the director of the UO Psychology Clinic and teaches graduate and undergraduate courses in psychology. In her role as clinic director, Dr. Ellingson provides training and supervision for clinical psychology doctoral students in evidence-based psychotherapy and psychological assessment. She is a member of the university's new Ballmer Institute Leadership Council, as well as various committees involved in the launch of the Institute. She earned her PhD in clinical psychology at UCLA, where her research focused on factors that influence positive parenting of children at developmental risk. She completed her clinical internship and postdoctoral residency at UCLA's Semel Institute for Neuroscience and Human Behavior, and we are delighted to have Dr. Ellingson with us today to introduce the university's new Ballmer Institute. Dr. Ellingson, welcome to City Club.
Hey, thank you so much for that lovely introduction. I am thrilled to be here today representing the Ballmer Institute for Children's Behavioral Health. I also really want to express my appreciation for City Club. I am a regular listener on Monday evenings, and I've lived in Eugene the past 5 years, and I really very much appreciate this community and have learned a lot from this organization. I imagine that most, maybe all of you, have heard something about the Ballmer Institute. It's been in the news a bit this past year. But my hope today is to provide some background on the inception of the Institute, provide detail about the work that University of Oregon faculty have been doing over this past year and putting into its launch, and then provide an update on where things stand now. So what prompted the creation of the Ballmer Institute? In a few words, we are in a mental health crisis. Last December, the Surgeon General issued a very rare public advisory calling on the nation to respond to the growing mental health crisis impacting children and adolescents. Even before the pandemic, mental health challenges were very prevalent and in fact were the leading cause of disability and poor life outcomes in young people. From 2009 to 2019, prior to COVID, the share of high school students who reported persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness jumped from 26% in 2009 to 37% in 2019, and then increased even more to 44% in 2021, 1 year into the pandemic. I think those numbers really illustrate the magnitude of the problem before COVID and then the exacerbating effect of the pandemic. I like numbers, so I'm going to give you some more numbers. 20% of children between kindergarten and the 12th grade this year will have a mental health condition, such as depression or anxiety. 10% of children will have several early symptoms of a mental health condition. Kind of think of this as pre-anxiety or pre-depression. And the remaining 70% will experience 1 or 2 symptoms. So no child is risk-free. From 2016 to 2020, right, our first year of COVID, child anxiety and depression in particular spiked, with the national figure jumping 26%, from 9.4% of children to 11.8%. This increase represents a staggering 1.5 million more children struggling just to make it through the day. And sadly, in Oregon, the rise is even more dramatic. The statewide rate climbed by 40%, from 11% to 16%, meaning that nearly 34,000 more Oregon children experienced anxiety or depression in the first year of the pandemic from previous levels. COVID provided a lot of disruption, right, and particularly for children. It disrupted in-person schooling, in-person social interaction, social opportunities, access to healthcare, social services, food, housing, health of caregivers. The pandemic has certainly affected all of us, no question, but it has most negatively affected those who were vulnerable to begin with, such as youth with disabilities, racial and ethnic minorities, LGBTQ+ youth, and low-income youth. In addition to that Surgeon General's advisory I mentioned a moment ago, a coalition of the nation's leading experts in pediatric health, including the American Academy of Pediatrics, declared a national emergency in child and adolescent mental health. And it is all too apparent that we do not currently have the capacity to meet the most urgent needs, let alone help all youth thrive. And the limited workforce we do have is often not representative of the communities that need support. So, in response to this mental health crisis, the University of Oregon established the Ballmer Institute for Children's Behavioral Health, which is a bold new approach to improve the behavioral health and well-being of Oregon's children. This was made possible by a lead gift of more than $425 million from Connie and Steve Ballmer. What we're doing is we are working to create a new profession, brand new profession called Child Behavioral Health Specialists, which to our knowledge is the first of its kind in the country. Child behavioral health specialists are bachelor-level professionals who promote the behavioral health and wellness of children and adolescents across identities and abilities from a variety of family structures and backgrounds in schools, public health, and other healthcare settings. I want to take a moment to define behavioral health. It's kind of this umbrella term, right, that includes the mental, social, and emotional well-being of youth. So I really want to focus on this bachelor level aspect of the profession. Most careers, the vast majority of careers in mental and behavioral health require a master's or a doctoral degree. So what's so important about offering this professional role at the bachelor's level is it opens up a much more tractable and affordable career pathway to more rapidly build and diversify the workforce. Ultimately, once this program launches, it will infuse Oregon's mental health workforce with 200 new graduates every year. So while the skills that these undergraduates will develop are related to other youth-serving roles such as school psychologists, counselors, social workers, this is really a unique constellation of skills that are particularly focused on early detection and prevention, as well as universal health promotion that will complement these other mental health professionals. So let me quickly define what we mean by promotion and prevention, right? They're kind of buzzwords. So promotion includes managing emotions and stress developing positive interpersonal relationships and social media habits, responsible decision-making, and goal setting. Prevention involves the early detection of the development of behavioral health problems in children and adolescents and implementing evidence-based individual, family, or group interventions to alleviate problems before they become severe. I should also mention, the big focus of the Ballmer Institute is on this undergraduate program and this new mental health profession, but I also want to note that we are also offering a graduate certificate program for current educators, teachers, to level up their skills in areas such as teaching students about self-regulation and healthy relationships, including those in online and social media spaces, and offering trauma-informed support for youth. So this is already off the ground. Our courses have filled very quickly. We're at capacity already, but these will continue to be offered. So how has this all happened? What has this looked like over the past year? The Ballmer Institute was officially launched March 1st, 2022, although a group of us had been working for months before that to propose the idea to the Ballmers and really start creating this vision. It's been a coordinated, focused, and frankly, I think, very inspiring effort by a large group of multidisciplinary faculty across the College of Education and the Department of Psychology at UO. We have been working intensely over the past year to launch this institute, and in particular, a big part of that has been developing the curriculum. This is a new curriculum. We're really well situated at University of Oregon to take on a project like this. Across departments, there is deep expertise in education, prevention, neuroscience, and psychology. So I want to highlight the work of our current leadership, Randy Camphouse and Julie Wren, who have really been leading us in this effort. One of the things they did very early on was hold scores of meetings with invested organizations and potential partners. I really don't know how they how they had the time to meet with all these different stakeholders. A large group of faculty, myself included, we met weekly from April to June. And at these meetings, Randy and Julie actually invited guest speakers that they had already met with, such as the Children's Institute, the Northwest Portland Area Indian Health Board, and the Student Organization for Autism Advocacy, to share their insight, and expertise on children's behavioral health. We worked to kind of develop the program's vision, what it was going to look like. We provided input and feedback on the program materials that a smaller set of faculty who were also meeting weekly had developed. I'll say that we had to make some really tough decisions about the development of the program, how it was structured, what content could fit into the program, and what our standard of evidence-based practice would be. So once kind of the program vision, objectives, and the structure were developed, we continued to work a lot over the summer to build out the syllabi for all of these new courses. And then I was involved in this, and the majority of faculty who were also involved had also been engaged at the program development stage, so had a really good and full understanding of the overall vision of the curriculum. These syllabi were then, in the overall program, were then reviewed by another committee, a curriculum committee, where there were more hard discussions, And actually some courses ultimately were not approved as they weren't perfectly aligned with the overall vision, and others required modification before they could advance. So this is all to say faculty, multidisciplinary faculty have dedicated incredible amounts of time over the last spring and summer to the development of this program. And this is above and beyond our regular daily jobs, which are already quite time-consuming. And I will say this is because we as a group, I think I can speak for our whole group, that we are so excited about this, and we really recognize the importance. I will say personally, this has been the most meaningful work I have been involved in my career so far. We also knew that we wanted to get this done quickly, We didn't want to cut corners. It needed to be very thorough, different levels of oversight. but we also need to move fast, right? Because the quicker we can get this program developed, the quicker we can get undergraduates into it, and the quicker we can develop a larger mental health workforce. So the way the program is structured, it has a 2+2 structure. So the initial first 2 years, students need to complete their general education and bachelor degree requirements. And they have a limited number of prerequisite courses that they need to complete before transferring into the Ballmer Institute. Currently, those who are eligible to transfer into the Ballmer Institute, kind of declare that as a major, are current University of Oregon students. Eventually, we have been partnering with community colleges. Eventually, community college students will also, after 2 years of doing prerequisite courses, be able to funnel into Ballmer as well. And I also want to mention another big lift of this whole project has been finding a campus, right? So a portion of the league gift of the $425 million was used to purchase a 19-acre campus in Northeast Portland. This was the former Concordia University. It'll now be known as UO Portland. The location is perfect because it centers the Institute in Oregon's most population-dense and diverse region and allows for a close partnership with Portland Public Schools. So the last 2 years of the program, students will be in Portland. They will be housed in Portland at the new UO Portland campus. And this immersion that they will experience in Portland will really allow them to build and hone their skill set across 4 core domains with over 20 new courses. So I'll go through these quickly. The first domain is the knowledge core. Right, so through these courses, students will ultimately be able to demonstrate an understanding of health equity and promotion, risk and protective factors in children and adolescents across identities, abilities, and family backgrounds and structures. I think a real gem of the new program is a 6-course series centered on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And what's also really neat about these courses is they were developed in partnership with local culturally specific organizations. So through these courses, students will be able to demonstrate knowledge of prevention and intervention theory and the ability to identify evidence-based practices and programs, particularly addressing the needs of historically underserved populations. The professional core courses will enable students to demonstrate professionalism across service settings, including understanding of professional ethics and appropriate consultation with practitioners. And finally, the skill development core, students will demonstrate foundational intervention skills with children, adolescents, and families from all communities, including culturally responsive and affirming delivery of services and evidence-based programs. You know, especially across these professional and skill development cores, students will log over 700 hours of supervised practice training in schools, community, and healthcare settings, where they will develop the professional skills and behavioral health promotion, prevention, and intervention skills. To be a little bit more descriptive of this as what students will actually be doing in their supervised practice, they will teach youth to identify emotions, various strategies to regulate emotions, teaching how to set goals, how to effectively problem solve, implementing mindfulness, building healthy habits for sleep, eating, physical activity, and digital media use. So what happens when they complete these 4 years? Many people, like I said, this is a new professional degree. These will be licensed professionals who can go out and practice. Now, again, it's a limited scope of practice compared to other mental health professionals. So some of these students, this might be a lifelong career for them as child behavioral health specialists. Other students might eventually be interested in graduate training, and we have excellent, if I do say so myself, graduate training programs here at the University of Oregon, as well as other Oregon public institutions. So this $425 million gift, I'll say what we're currently actively involved in is faculty recruitment. So a good portion of that gift was to recruit 10 tenure track research faculty and 15 clinical faculty. So the research faculty, the tenure track faculty, they will be housed at UO Portland. And these are faculty who are doing research on children behavioral health, and particularly faculty who have programs of research exploring underserved populations and how to better serve those populations. Clinical faculty will be housed in Portland Public Schools, and they will work with youth themselves, and then they will also be the clinical supervisors for the Ballmer Institute students when they come in to do their supervised practice. I also want to highlight the $100 million that the gift from the Ballmers also include, which is an endowment for scholarships to make this program more accessible for students who might not otherwise have been able to access it. So I'll wrap up there and just bring us back to kind of why we're doing this in the first place. And I think this is a lovely quote from the executive director of Our Children Oregon. When we act together, all children can thrive. But we have to address the systemic racial and geographic disparities as we do so to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to reach their full potential and live their best life. So thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ellingson. We will now take a 5-minute break for composing of questions for our speaker, and we'll also be delighted to have a first questioner join us today, Jennifer Moorhead. So we'll be back in 5 minutes. Welcome back to the City Club of Eugene and today's program, learning about the new Ballmer Institute for Children's Behavioral Health. We have with us, here with us today, Dr. Ruth Ellingson from the Institute, and we are also delighted to welcome a first questioner. And so I will invite Jennifer Moorhead to the microphone. Jennifer is a licensed professional counselor and certified drug and alcohol counselor with more than 25 years experience in these fields. She works for Cascade Health with children, adolescents, adults, and seniors individually and/or as a family unit. Her areas of expertise include depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, intellectual and developmental disabilities, trauma, grief, and traumatic brain injuries. Welcome to City Club, Jennifer, and please, your question.
Thank you. First of all, I just think this is filling a huge need, and this is just very needed. The whole holistic approach is what I work with every single day, and so seeing that this opportunity is presenting itself is just wonderful, so thank you. My first question comes with the liability that these new workers will carry as being certified as a licensed professional counselor. We carry our own malpractice insurance, and so I'm wondering what kind of liability these new workers will have.
Sure, it's a great question. So I think the details of that, I will, this is all quite new, right? We've really started launching this less than a year ago. And so those details are certainly being worked out. I'm sure there will be some form of having malpractice insurance. I think what's also will be interesting to see is we're going to start in the schools. So these child behavioral health specialists will be housed in Portland Public Schools. And eventually, probably pretty quickly, the program will expand to other settings, other healthcare settings, community mental health settings. We've gotten lots of interest. Lots of people want these child behavioral health specialists. So, the liability issues will vary depending on the setting. I'll also say that, a lot of the tough decisions and the discussions we had were about kind of the scope of practice here. So child behavioral health specialists are certainly not going to be doing everything that licensed professional counselors doing, or anyone else at the master's or doctoral level. Again, they're going to be more focused on promotion and prevention. There will be limited intervention that they are involved in. But a lot of what they will be trained to do is do some screening and also know when to refer to someone who has a broader scope of practice.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you.
Next question, please introduce yourself, also if you are a City Club member, and ask a question of our speaker.
Hi, thank you. I'm not a City Club member, but I'm grateful to the City Club for this opportunity. My name is Jenny Canaday. I work for Reach Out Oregon. We're a warm line supporting parents whose children experience distress behaviors. And I'm also the member of a parent group of 1,000 parents called the A-Team Justice League. And my question is, are you guys planning to collaborate at all with the new ABA program at the University of Oregon? My concern is the University of Oregon came into my son's school and put him in an ABA program, and it was extremely traumatic and caused trauma and PTSD. And I applied to be on their advisory committee and was not selected, even though they're still looking for people to be on their advisory committee. So I'm just wondering if you guys are going to allow the voices of lived experience who might have uncomfortable things to say into the room, and if you're collaborating with the ABA program. Thank you.
Thank you. Great question. So I think I mentioned earlier that one of the groups we heard from and came to present to our whole group of faculty when we were really in this brainstorming phase was, and I might get the group name wrong, but it was the Autistic Advocacy Group at the University of Oregon, so a group of neurodiverse students, many of whom are autistic, came and spoke to our group about their own lived experiences, and some of them having had difficult experiences with ABA. Child behavioral health specialists will not be implementing ABA. That is not part of the scope of practice whatsoever, and as far as I know, there isn't any official collaboration with that program.
Thank you.
Am I tall enough? Hi, I'm Amy. I'm not a City Club member, and thank you for allowing us to be here and presenting. My name is Amy Fellows. I'm the executive director of a nonprofit healthcare civic engagement organization called We Can Do Better that was started by former Governor Kit Sapper in 2006. This year, we held our annual conference focused on relational health, supporting youth at home, school, and in community, and really trying to shift the lens away from, air quote, behavioral health, behaviorism in the schools with the PBIS model / I call ABA Light, and moving towards more relational models with the belief that as long as we focus on the externalized behaviors of individuals, we will never address the generational and epigenetic traumas of those individuals. We are only looking at externalized behaviors that don't tell us much. So that's my background, but my question is, and also, more importantly, I'm the parent of a child who is autistic, who was harmed by PBIS in the local school system and was not able to access their education because of that harm. So my question is, ableism is one of the biggest challenges disabled students face in our school systems, and yet the Disability Studies minor at University of Oregon cannot continue without a commitment to funding. How does the Ballmer Institute plan to support this program, since you do have some extra funding, it appears, so it doesn't close? Disability justice will be important coursework for your students to have so they understand the history of disabled students and individuals and the fight to be seen and accepted in their full humanity.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing your personal experience. So that will certainly be a part of the coursework that, that Ballmer students receive. We, of course, know that ableism is a big problem in our society and particularly in schools. And, you know, there's really this emphasis in this program. I feel like I can't emphasize it enough on serving underrepresented and underserved populations and really addressing the vast diversity of students out there. So that is something that students, if they haven't had previous training on, will absolutely get in their 2 years when they're in Portland. I'm not privy to how all the money is being being spent above my pay grade, so I don't know if there's financial support for other UO programs. But I think kind of the more advocacy in this area there is, then people will hear it. Thank you.
I'm going to interject a question that came in through messages, and it has to do with the potential. You mentioned that this program will include staff in Portland Public Schools and also connections to serving children in Portland Public Schools. And the question is about how that model could come to Eugene and serve children in our 4J and Bethel school districts.
Yes, so, you know, this has really been, obviously we're thinking big with the Ballmer Institute, and the goal is, you know, we're starting in Portland. It's kind of the place that makes sense to start. It has kind of the densest population, a lot of diversity. The goal ultimately is to expand through Oregon, and potentially, I think most of us would really like to see this go nationwide. So, you know, we're kind of in the pilot phase right now. Well, you know, I think we have a really good plan, really great supports in place. I'll say I've been involved in our search committee and hiring for some clinical faculty. We have amazing people who are going to be coming in and supervising in this school. So I think it's going to, you know, there's always growing pains in anything new, but I think we're set up for it to launch quite well. But we have to start, we're not really starting small because this is a pretty big thing, but we have to start small before we can go real big. But yes, the goal is eventually to have child behavioral health specialists expand beyond Portland.
Thank you.
My name is Jay Ingrid Kessler, member of City Club, and thank you so much for this important and exciting work that you are doing. My question segues quite well from the last one, so that's a happy coincidence. I'm hoping that you can share additional details with us about job placement programs for the students that will be amongst the first graduates, so that underserved areas such as rural Oregon can benefit from the program. And thank you so much again.
Great question, and as I mentioned, those living in rural areas are quite underserved when it comes to mental health. Our initial graduates will likely be, my guess is, and I can't say for absolute sure, but my guess is just since the partnerships have been developed within the Portland public school system. Now, I know that other relationships in other schools in the surrounding area of Portland are also being developed. That's probably the first place that our graduates will go. But again, we're going to graduate 200 students every year. That's a lot. And so ultimately, we certainly want to expand beyond that. And rural Oregon is going to be a really, really important place to do that. So that's absolutely on our radar. Thank you.
My name is Martha Ravitz, a City Club member and a former English department faculty member at the university. So my question sort of takes a different angle. I can see the benefits and the real need for this program, but I'm concerned about the students within it. If they are up in Portland, how will they get their sort of their requirements in across the campus, writing, and will they have a chance to take courses outside developmental psychology and clinical psychology?
Great question. These students are going to be more focused in their education. I mean, this is kind of a professional training program, and I think that the thing we can liken it to the most is nursing, right? Because you can get a professional nursing degree at the bachelor's level. Obviously you can go on and get your master's and doctoral degree as well. But folks who go into a professional nursing program at a bachelor's level, your coursework is more focused, right, than perhaps other majors, because you do have to devote so much of this time to actual supervised practice. That said, there are going to be general prerequisites that are more broad, and I wish I could list what all of those are, but 2 years will be spent doing coursework at UO or a community college. So there will be quite a bit of general education coursework that can fit into those 2 years before they get much more specialized up in Portland. I don't know yet, once these students are in Portland, if they will have access to other UO courses. They're going to be very busy. They're going to have a lot on their plate, right, with their supervised practice and the coursework that I outlined earlier. But in this day and age, as we have Zoom at our fingertips, and it's made it a lot easier to teach courses with more of a geographical spread. So that could potentially be an option. I can't say for sure whether that will be available to those students yet. It's an important question, though. Thank you.
Hi, Sandy Smalley, City Club member. You've actually answered a couple of my questions already, but I do have another one. So my understanding now from what you've said is that these are going to be employed in the school system, not the healthcare system. Is that true?
Initially.
Okay. And is there financing available through the legislature for this? I mean, our school systems are already pretty strapped.
So yeah, so this is, and I should have brushed up on the financial information a bit more before coming, because again, it's not an area I know so much, but ultimately we want this to be a sustainable program. Again, this was a lead gift, right? But this is going to be a sustainable program that there have been talks, I know, with Oregon legislature all the way up to Kate Brown, as far as kind of how to keep this program sustainable. We're starting in schools, and again, our initial year, that's where students will be placed. But from there, they will likely go out into other healthcare systems, community mental health organizations, potentially primary care. There's lots of options. But yes, a lot is going on, and I'm just not particularly involved in that as far as how do we keep this going and not add more financial strain to systems like schools that are already quite strapped. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Andrew Calick. I'm the president-elect of City Club. My question has to do with who you're looking to as you build out Ballmer. As you said, it's sort of a first of its kind, so you're breaking the mold in some way. But I also imagine that you look to others for guidance or inspiration. So just curious what other models you're looking at out there and how you've decided to build it the way you have.
Great question. So, you know, as things often happen, right, when we're kind of thinking, there needs to be something like this. Other people are having those same ideas too. And I think, you know, as horrible as the pandemic has been, it has brought more awareness to mental health, and I think particularly child mental health. And so I do think there are other universities, other organizations who are thinking similarly. I'll say I'm seeing a lot more in the research literature about how can we bring in more people without requiring these advanced degrees, right, which take much more time, much more money, are not as accessible to everyone, particularly underrepresented populations. So it's something that I think across various fields we're grappling with, and my hope is that, I mean, we can get things done a lot quicker if it's a bigger group of us. So as far as existing models, I will say I think the nursing model is a lot of where we grew some inspiration from. Now that's a little bit, I mean, although nurses certainly do work in behavioral health, it's a bit different. But so I can't, and I might just not be aware of other programs at this moment. They might just be launching, just like Ballmer. So I can't identify other particular programs like Ballmer, but I know it's something that's being talked about. I know it's something that we're certainly not the only ones who know this is a problem and looking to this kind of degree as a solution.
Another question that has come in through messages. You're focused on child mental and behavioral health with good reason, but there are other needs among the adult population as well. How different is the education necessary for practitioners who could work with adults and could eventually graduate from Ballmer from the work that you're planning to do for children's behavioral specialists?
That's a great question, and I will say I come from a very child and developmental background, so I might be a bit biased in this answer. I think that if you are trained as a child psychologist, if you have a good foundational background in development, and development isn't just kids, development is lifelong, you are developing a pretty amazing skill set that can fairly quickly be transferred to adult work as well. That's not to say it's all the same by any means, right? There are different life transitions that happen with adults, different stressors, but you know, trained as a child psychologist, I do occasionally work with adults as well. I also supervise when it comes to adult therapy cases. So I think there's potential for that. I mean, I think there's so much to be done with kids first, with our youth, but of course, adults, we're struggling too, right? And could certainly use some additional supports.
Mm-hmm. Another question, and this connects back to a City Club program, two City Club programs that were held looking at children's mental health, the mental health crisis, and also adult mental health and trauma. And the question has to do with whether or not there was an aha moment that had to do with really seeing the landscape of children's behavioral health, because it sounds like somewhere along the line, someone said, what we really need to do is get behavioral health professionals back in schools. And we can talk a lot about the crisis or the challenges, but unless we actually create the workforce to meet those challenges, we won't get anywhere. So was there an aha moment? That was the question.
I don't know that there was a single aha moment, but I do think kind of going back to COVID, right? It was undeniable how much the numbers spiked. I gave some of those early on, and it just became, you couldn't ignore how much people, and particularly children, were struggling. I mean, especially kids, their worlds were turned upside down. And so, you know, advocacy for mental health obviously has been around for a long time. I think it's just much more out there now. We're talking about it more. It's becoming much less stigmatized. And so I think, as unfortunate as it is that mental health issues have increased quite dramatically in the past few years, we're paying more attention now. And we are realizing that the current system we have is not sustainable. And we need to do something vastly different. So if there's any kind of aha moment, I think, sadly, it's just that so many people are struggling, and we need to do something about it.
Thank you.
Hi, Mary Layton, City Club member and retired educator. So I lived through the time when you thought you could make a teacher in 4 years, and through an argument in a small liberal arts college about could you do enough in the first 2 years of general liberal arts stuff to leave 2 years to learn the trade. And I'm just trying to figure out how a person with 2 years of training, what they bring to the mix that often takes a lot longer and actually a lot more graduate education to sort of situate. So maybe you could just talk to me about what this new profession would be able to do and not do. What are the boundaries of the turf that they would address?
Great question, and one that I can't even think about how many hours of discussion we've had on that topic as the faculty who are really launching this. They will be spending 2 years of supervised practice, which is actually fairly similar to the amount of time in a master's program that's spent for a 2 years master's program. Like I said, they're going to have 700 supervised intervention hours before they graduate. That's a pretty substantial amount of training. And we have been very thoughtful about there being a limited scope of practice and what they're going to be trained in, and like you said, what are the boundaries, what are the parameters of that training? Particularly in schools, right, they're going to be working alongside social workers, school psychologists, so there are going to be others there who have more advanced training, right, and will take on some of the things that our students can't take. And the idea is absolutely not to replace any of those professions. Those are very important professions, right? We need those with that advanced training. The idea is more to lend a hand, right? And to pick up some of the work that you can really do at a bachelor's level with this kind of training. So again, it's going to be much more kind of preventative promotion kind of work. Students are not going to be doing advanced assessment, right, and diagnosing mental health disorders. That is certainly beyond their scope of practice. They are going to be much more involved in the side of initial screening and being able to see who are the kids who are maybe on the path to having more severe difficulties, and where can we intervene now with things like emotion regulation strategies, things like problem solving, mindfulness, right? So that's going to be a lot of what their work looks like. And again, intervention is going to be quite limited. And that's where referrals to the school social worker or the school psychologist or perhaps folks outside the school will happen. So that's something we spent a lot of time thinking about, and just what is the scope of practice that's reasonable for this level to have. And I mean, I'll be the first to admit, I have a PhD. There's plenty I do that I think someone at a bachelor's level can do. There's also things I do that I really need my advanced training for. So really kind of finding that boundary, and we've tried to be really thoughtful about it. There might be adjustments as we see how things play out, which is why we also have done a lot of consultation and had meetings with various groups, including school psychologists, social workers, really getting a sense from them, what are the things what are the areas that you need more support in so you can do the things that you are more specialty trained to do. So it hasn't just been UO faculty deciding on this. We've done a lot of outreach and a lot of meetings with others who can really help us get a sense of what exactly those boundaries are. Thank you. Great question.
Hi. Thank you for being here today. I'm Kitty Piercy, and I'm a member of City Club. I've heard talking about children's behavioral health, our early prevention, intervention, but I think we all know that adolescence is at a time where the machine starts up again in a different way, and so I'm wondering about how you envision working with that age group.
So we will certainly be working with teens, and yes, those teenage years are a particular time where we see a lot more of these mental health challenges come on. There's just a lot of transition happening in that time, right? Becoming more independent from the family system, peer relationships becoming more important, kind of exposure to things like substances. So there's a lot of things specific to that that particular age range. So an important part of the coursework that these students will be completing is really understanding those developmental changes and transitions and being quite well versed in what is kind of normative, right, and where things might be going off course. So I personally think that you cannot be a good child psychologist without a very strong grasp of development, right, knowing what, because things that are normative at one age and that we really don't need to worry about, 3 years later, might be something to worry about. So that is very important training. We've been very thoughtful about making sure that students receive. Yeah.
Another question coming in through live stream. For many years, the stigma of mental illness has prevented a lot of people from seeking treatment for themselves or their children. And how much of an issue does stigma remain in your work, and how is Ballmer positioned to tackle it?
This is an area I'm really very passionate about, and I will say I teach undergrad courses in mental health, and I always devote at least one class to talking about mental health stigma. I have seen, just over the course of my own graduate training and my time as a licensed psychologist, it's getting a lot better. We're talking about it more. It's much less stigmatized. But you can see quite a few generational differences as well, where I will say kids these days, it's, also you have to think about geographic differences. We're here in Eugene, Oregon. I don't know that it would be quite the same in other places in our country. But I will say I also have a small private practice of my own, so I see my own clients, and then I supervise a lot of child cases in our clinic, and kids are quite open about having a therapist, right? Saying they're struggling with anxiety, sharing tips and tools with each other, it's, as far as kind of emotion regulation tools, and that's been so amazing to see that there really is this generational shift and this stigma decreasing. We still have a long way to go. We certainly do. I think that one of the great things about getting this into schools is you're reaching so many more kids than the kids whose parents are willing to bring them in to see a therapist. And so even if there might still be that stigma at home or in other kind of communities that a child is a part of, at school it's being talked about. They're hearing adults, they're hearing people they look up to talk about it, they are hearing other kids talk about it. So I will say, as much as mental health stigma still exists, we are moving quickly in the right direction, thankfully.
Great question. This next question is a bit of a clarifying question. Can you explain how many years difference this is for someone to be a person who is helping children's mental health, a professional working in children's mental health? This will be a 4-year program. What does the typical path look like? How many years were we talking about here?
Sure. So there are multiple paths that currently exist to being a mental health provider. So this, in 4 years, you will have, again, it's going to be a different license, it's going to be a different certification than currently exists, but you will be able to practice without supervision as a child behavioral health specialist. Typically, those who become licensed, now there's different types of licenses. There's licensed clinical social workers, there's licensed professional counselors, licensed marriage and family therapists. Typically, that's about 2 extra years at the master's level, 2 extra years of training beyond a bachelor's degree. So you're looking at 6 years, give or take. For those going on to do doctoral training, it's a lot of years. So my doctoral training took 6 years, and that's pretty typical. I did 5 years of kind of coursework and an additional clinical training, and then I had to do a full year internship before I could get my degree. And then I had to do additional supervised practice before I could get licensed. So it can be a real long haul. But like I said, there's plenty that people there's plenty that I do with a PhD that someone with a master's does. So it's one of these things that there are different routes to being a licensed mental health provider. As far as the number of years of training you do, it kind of depends, maybe what additional aspects you want to I had very heavy research training. That was a big part of my 6 years. Heavy assessment training, being able to diagnose. So there's certain kind of specialties that take more time, but at kind of the basic level of being a therapist or being a mental health provider and working with someone who's struggling, that typically is about 2 years post-bachelor's. Yeah.
Very exciting and interesting relative to some things that we've discussed this year in City Club around diversity within our workforce and within specific professions. That is great news. One last question today, and it's a good one to end on, which is that question, wanting to know what success looks like for the Ballmer Institute. When will we know whether or not this model works? How are you researching the work that's being implemented in this coming year and years? And where are you hoping to seed this idea at other universities?
Great question. Those of us who have been really involved in the launch of this program, and again, I imagine that some of us, once new Ballmer faculty are hired, our role will be smaller. But we have a lot of researchers in our group, right? And we like data. We like to look at numbers. So we will certainly be looking at kind of symptom rates, those who are meeting criteria for a mental health disorder. We will certainly be looking at that in the schools and how hopefully that changes, that goes down. Many schools already have some of the screening and assessment incorporated. We're hopefully going to go in and just enhance that a bit. But we will absolutely be looking at those numbers. And not just, does someone reach criteria for mental health disorder, but just quality of life, right? Are these kids able to, attend to their schoolwork? Are they having, supportive peer relationships? How is family functioning? Those are all really important outcomes. So I imagine that a big part of our tenure track faculty, those 10 tenure track faculty who will be housed at UO Portland, I imagine that's going to be involved in a fair amount of the future research they do. So I can't speak to exactly what outcomes we're looking for at this point. I imagine we'll be looking at many, and stay posted. I think that's something we're going to try to disseminate pretty widely.
Thank you. It is a big goal and a huge area of need, and it has been wonderful to have you here as a part of this conversation today. This has been our December 9th, 2022 program at the City Club of Eugene, an introduction to the UO's Ballmer Institute for Children's Behavioral Health. Before we thank our speaker one last time, I would like to recognize our diamond sponsors. Kaiser Permanente exists to provide high-quality, affordable healthcare services and to improve the health of our members in the communities that we serve. More information is available at kp.org. The University of Oregon has helped Oregonians to question critically, think logically, reason effectively, communicate clearly, act creatively, and live ethically since 1876. and you can find more information at uoregon.edu. Peace Health has been proud to serve Eugene, Lane County, and beyond as your hometown healthcare provider partner for more than 80 years. The Peace Health mission is to keep you and your family healthy, and you can learn more at peacehealth.org. Lane Community College transforms lives through learning. LCC provides comprehensive, accessible, high-quality educational opportunities that promote student success. For more information, please visit lanecc.edu. And thank you, of course, to Lane County and the City of Eugene for their support. We would also like to thank today's Sapphire sponsors, Summit Bank. Founded in 2004, Summit Bank is the only independent community bank headquartered in Eugene. Summit Bank is Oregon's business bank, and Summit's mission is to be the best community bank for businesses and professionals. You can learn more at sbko.bank. And AARP Oregon. AARP is dedicated to empowering people aged 50 plus and keeping Oregonians informed, engaged, and active. You can learn more at states.aarp.org/Oregon. And thank you to today's gold sponsors, Network Charter School and Sacred Earth Botanicals. Also, our in-kind sponsors, KRVM 91.9 Radio, Pack Info and Simplified Computing LLC, and Dot Dotson's Photography. We couldn't do it without you. And of course, a special thank you to our award-winning public radio station, KLCC FM 89.7, for airing City Club programs on Monday evenings at 7 o'clock. You can find all recent City Club programs archived on KLCC, as well as on the City Club YouTube channel and as podcasts. Next week, on Friday, December 16th at 12 p.m. noon, we welcome you to join us for a special City Club program at the Davis Restaurant in downtown Eugene. This is also the final City Club program of our 2022 programming year, and it's the Gifts to the City program. This annual event is framed around a simple question. If you were given a magic wand and could give any gift to our city to make it an even better place for all of us to live, what would you give? City Club is honored to be welcoming 10 distinguished Eugenians whose community involvement gives them unique perspectives on our community, and we are excited to hear what gifts they will share with us all. This program will run from 12 to 1 p.m., and there will be a reception immediately following, and we hope to see you there. Finally, I want to just note, it has been the City Club's pleasure to present our 2022 programs from the community room at First United Methodist Church. Many organizations, clubs, events, gatherings happen in this space before the pandemic and after emerging, and City Club has appreciated our opportunity to be located here and partner with the church in that work. Beginning on January 6th, our first City Club program of 2023 will be in the heart of downtown Eugene at the 5th Street Market District. We are excited to be hosting City Club's programs in 2023 from the Maple Room at the Inn at the 5th, and we look forward to seeing you there, to welcoming you to great conversations at City Club, and to imagining what we might all accomplish together in the year ahead. We are planning for those 2023 programs right now, so if you have a suggestion for a City Club program, if you think there's an issue that we should be talking about together, please visit our website, cityclubofeugene.org, and make that suggestion. We welcome everyone to join this conversation, and you can also email us at info@cityclubofeugene.org. Finally, one last thank you to our speaker today, Dr. Ruth Ellingson, Director of U.S. Psychology Clinic and member of the Leadership Council of the university's new Ballmer Institute. Thank you, Dr. Ellingson, for being here with us. It has been our pleasure to welcome you to the City Club of Eugene. Thank you all for joining us. Happy holidays, take care, and we will see you soon.